Hey guys, Daddy-O here from Dad Adventure TV. So I just got back from the gym. I'm at work on a Saturday and just kind of giving myself about a 5-10 minute recovery here. So I thought I'd do a quick video for all of you new Defender 2 buyers. That's the 2020 or 2021 Defender. So I currently own a Land Rover LR4 and I wanted to give you guys and girls who are thinking of buying the Defender out there some pointers on it, because let's face it, the Defender is not really the spiritual successor to the old Defender. It's the spiritual successor to the LR4 in the rest of the world other than the US. I think it's known as the Discovery 4. The really spiritual successor to the LR4 that's probably coming out is going to be the Ineos Grenadier. If any of you are familiar with that, looks just like it. They actually look so much like it, they got sued by Land Rover, but Land Rover lost the court case because they had never trademarked the design. But it's got solid front and rear axles, body on frame, coil sprung suspension, the whole 9 yards. But I assume it's going to be more ergonomically designed on the inside. Obviously, hopefully should have all the modern safety features and things as well. But that's really the successor to the old Defender. The new Defender really is the new LR4 slash Discovery 4. It's really what it should have been instead of what the Discovery 5 currently is, in my opinion. So let me just tell you a few things about the Defender that I think I can probably say with pretty good confidence based on the LR4. So as you know from the spec sheet, it's going to have air suspension, independent suspension. It's unlike the LR4, it's not going to be a body on frame. The LR4 is actually a combination of a body on frame and a monocoque. The new Defender is just a monocoque. So that's slightly different from the LR4, but it's going, if you get the 6-cylinder, it's a gas version, it's going to have pretty big brake calipers that are going to require the 20-inch wheels, at least from the factory. It's going to have, you know, sort of one of these modern plasticky foam underside kind of bumpers on it. So a few things about those things for people that might be thinking about off-roading with it, modifying it, etc. First thing is the independent suspension. Obviously, it's an independent suspension vehicle. It's not a solid front and rear axle vehicle. So it is not going to have the articulation or just the toughness to kind of go bashing it into stuff that a solid front and rear would have. That being said, I have never really had a problem with it in off-roading. The articulation is pretty decent, I mean, for an independent suspension vehicle. You know, to me, if you're getting an all-rounder, which is really what the Defender is, the new Defender, it's more of an all-rounder, meant to carry, meant to tow, meant to do some off-roading, be used as a daily comfortably. When you're getting a vehicle like that, you're not going to be doing massively difficult or really hard off-roading with it. You know, you're not going to be doing massive rock crawling. You're probably not going to do the Rubicon in the thing. Although, who knows, maybe some people will. But that's not really what it's designed for. It's designed for sort of light to moderate off-roading. You know, with my LR4, I do, if I go to a park, it's like green and blue trails, sometimes a single black diamond kind of trail. And if, you know, it's not a park, they're not necessarily graded like that, those kind of level trails. And the articulation that the Land Rover has is fine. One of the things that the air suspension with Land Rover does is when one wheel is compressed up, it forces air into the other air spring, and the other air spring pushes air down. I don't know if it forces air in, but it modulates it so that it pushes the other wheel down more. So you do get some decent articulation. The back in particular is pretty good. The front obviously is not nearly as good in the articulation. But as I said, you know, for what I've done, I've never really had a problem. Yes, sometimes a wheel comes off, usually one of the front ones where you're cross-articulated, but it's never stopped me. It's never got me stuck because of the four-wheel drive system, which I'll get into in a bit. So you know, obviously if you're going to go bashing it, you're going to do serious hardcore rock crawling, or you're going to be, you know, far off grid, you probably want that solid axle vehicle. But if you're looking for an all-rounder, you're going to be doing light to moderate off-roading, you should have no problems with the independent suspension on the Defender, I wouldn't think. The next thing to talk about are the 20-inch wheels. Obviously, an Achilles heel if you're going off-road with this. Here's the interesting thing about the 20s. I actually put 265, 50 R20s on mine pretty early on and rode with those for quite a while. And I was okay with it. You have to obviously go slower. You've got to pick your line more. If you see a rock, put the tire on it. Don't, you know, try to go around it where your sidewall might be close to it. But I actually never wound up with a puncture in those. They were okay. Now, you can't air down as much as you would like, which is obviously the downside, and they are. If you are not careful, they obviously can be, sidewalls in particular can tear or puncture easier. I have since gone to 18-inch wheels with 265, 65 R18s on them. I put on their Cooper Discoverer ST Max. My old 265, 50 20s, R20s were Nito Ridge Grapplers, which were a pretty good wheel, or a pretty good tire. Number one, you can get a more aggressive tire even on the 20s. The other thing is they should be making, I would think, sometime soon, an 18-inch wheel that will fit over the brake calipers for the 6-cylinder engine, just like they did for the LR4. Now, what I put on there are by a company called Compomotive UK. You can get them on Johnson Rod's website, which I'll talk about in a minute with regard to lifting the vehicle. That's where I got them. They are an aluminum wheel, so, you know, if you're hell-bent on a Steely, there's only one Steely that I'm aware of that fits. I forget the name of it. Those you do need a spacer for. The Compomotives fit right over the calipers, no modifications required, no spacers, nothing, which is nice. So, again, for the type of off-roading I think that most people are going to do with the Defender, like what I'm doing with my LR4, you know, the aluminums are fine. I'm not banging the heck out of the rims that bad that I'm going to need to be out there with a hammer on the trail, banging them back to get me back. I've got one full-size spare. I'm actually thinking of getting another just to carry with me when I'm off-roading, so I'd have two. That would get me out, and then when I get home, I'll just buy a new wheel. So I haven't seen the Compomotives yet for the Defender, or any other 18s yet for the Defender with the 6-cylinder, but I suspect they're coming, and when they do, like I say, they should be able to fit right over the calipers without any spacers, and then that will allow you to put on the bigger wheels, bigger tires. 265 65s are really nice on my LR4. I think you can even go a little bigger on the Defender. I'm going to put a link below to Johnson Rods, who sells a lift kit, to Lucky 8, that sells its own lift kit, and to some videos by Steve out in Colorado, who has modified a Defender. I think he actually either owns or works at the Land Rover dealership out there. He's got 33s on there with a lift with no problem, and I think he was talking about possibly going up to 35s, which might require a little bit of cutting. But with bigger wheels and tires, or smaller wheels but bigger tires, as I said, once you go to the 18s, you should be able to go to probably a 33-inch on there, tire on there. So that would give you awesome off-roading with the thing. You would need to, I think, put at least a 1.5, probably the 2 or 2.5-inch spacer. So the way the way the lift kits work on these air suspensions is there's a little rod in there that's about this big, and I just modified my LR4 with the smaller wheels, bigger tires, and the lift permanently. So I'll put the link on here as well down in the description. You can go check it out. You can actually see where they are on my vehicle. But they're about this big. They're a plastic or metal rod, and it basically tells the computer what setting the air suspension is in, whether it's in load height, ride height, off-road height, or extended off-road height, or even extended off-road height. And what it does is it basically tricks the computer and puts it in kind of like off-road height all the time. So it gives you a 2.5-inch lift on the vehicle, which allows you, in my LR4, to go up to about a 31.5 to 32-inch tire without a problem. I think in the Defender, as I said, it looks like you can do a 33 without a problem. That's with no trimming and no rubbing. You might even be able to go higher than that in it with some trimming of the wheel well or fenders. Not sure about that yet. But that's an easy modification, really. Those lift rods are, I think they're like 60 bucks maybe, or I don't know, whatever they are. I like the Johnson rod lift rods. They're steel. He CNC machines them. They're really, really well made. But if you're going to put the lift rods on there, I would recommend one other thing, and that is Lucky 8 sells a bump stop increaser. Basically makes your bump stop a little higher, and some limiting straps. And the issue there is with a bigger tire on, if your air suspension fails and you go down and you're on your bump stops, you may not be able to move the vehicle depending on how big of a tire you put on there. One reason I went with the 265/65 R18s is because if it falls down the bump stocks, I can still drive it with that. The wheels will still roll, they'll still turn. Yeah, they're going to rub some, but I could drive it and I could get out. If I went any bigger than that, that's about 31.8-inch tire. If I went any bigger than that, if it fell on the bump stocks, I'd be screwed because they'd be jammed in there. I wouldn't be able to move it. So that's something to think about when you're thinking about your wheel size, is you want to get to the biggest wheel that will still allow you to roll it out if the air suspension fails and you drop on your bump stocks. Now, what does this Lucky 8 kit do? So the Lucky 8 kit is going to increase the height on your bump stops so that if it drops, it doesn't drop as far, which means you can get a little bit bigger of a tire in there and still have the clearance to roll out if you're on your bump stops. If you do that, though, you got to get the limiting straps too, because what happens when you increase the bump stops is that you can get more downward articulation in the wheel. You can actually go beyond what the control arms for the independent suspension are designed to handle, and you can wind up messing up your independent suspension. So you put these limiting straps, and that's going to limit how far down the wheel can go so that you don't screw up your suspension and wind up bending or breaking some of your joints in there and some of the arms in there. So if you're going to modify the wheels and tires, like I said, I think there's going to be 18s soon that'll fit. You can get those, you put them on. You can then get probably a 33 without a problem. Use the lift rods. Also get the bump stop and strap kit from Lucky 8, and you should be set. Which brings me to the next point, which is the air suspension. So, look, there's pluses and minuses to air suspension, right? I mean, it's a wonderful, wonderful thing for on-road driving. Man, it is really nice on the road. It's also nice because as an all-rounder, you know, you can lower and raise that thing as needed. You know, I've got a 2-person kayak I'm putting up on top of it often. And I think the thing weighs 70 pounds. And I'm, you know, putting it up there myself because my son's 11, so he ain't helping me that much. And, you know, it's nice to be able to lower that vehicle down when I'm putting that thing up on the roof rack or anything else that's heavy that you're going to put up there. Sometimes I carry my high lift jack. I think it's a 5.5 footer. So it's pretty heavy. Again, lowering it to put that up there is pretty nice. So it has its pluses for an all-rounder. You know, on the other hand, it can fail. It's prone to failure. Now, what are the things that you're likely to fail if you have this? Well, there's a couple parts. There's a sensor, which basically tells it what to do and where to be. Those can fail. You can have the compressor itself fail. In the LR4, it's in the back under the seat, under the loading floor. That can fail. Obviously, if you've got to have that replaced, I think it's like $350, $400. The air springs themselves can fail. You could have a leak in the air spring. You could have a leak in the system. You know, one of the air hoses that goes to the air springs can leak. That's one of the things you do have to watch for if you're going to modify the wheels and tires I know on the LR4, if you go much bigger than like 31.5 to 32 inches, you got to, there's, I think one of the air hoses in the rear, I believe, you have to reroute. In fact, with that Lucky 8 kit, when you increase the bump stops, you have to, they give you a little extra hose. You got to make the air hose a little longer. So, you know, it's something that can fail. Obviously, if it fails out on the trail, like I said, you're going to be on your bump stops. So you're going to have one bumpy ride down, and hopefully your wheels and tires aren't so big that they're jammed in there. Hopefully you can ride it down, even though your suspension is going to be going to be like one of those hoopty cars. Now, here's the other side to that. For the LR4, there are companies that make a coil spring suspension swap out. There's one with a 2-inch lift, and then there's one with normal ride height. So I haven't seen them yet for the Defender 2. I suspect they're going to come out, and when they do, you know, the whole set, 4 of them, is I think $1,400 bucks. So it's not super expensive. I mean, it's not cheap, but if you're really going to be out there and you're really worried about the air suspension, they should be able to swap them out for coil springs pretty soon, I would think, as soon as the aftermarket starts getting geared up. One of the things we have to remember about the aftermarket with this vehicle is it just came out last year, this year, I guess, 2020, but it really hasn't sold in many huge numbers because of COVID, and, you know, sales are just starting now to kind of ramp up a little bit more. So, you know, the aftermarket's got to have some time to see if there's a market for people wanting these things before they're going to make them. But I think they will, just like they did with the LR4. So that's an option. You can obviously get the 4-cylinder. The 4-cylinder you can get from the factory with coil, or no, I'm sorry. The 110 isn't going to have coils at all in the US at any rate. The 90 will. The 90 will have coils. But the 110 will have the 110 with the 4-cylinder will have the 18-inch Steelies available. Excuse me. So you can get the 18-inch steel rims, and then of course you can, once you got the 18s from the factory, you can do whatever you want for the tires. So those are probably the most important things to be aware of if you want to modify the new Defender that you're going to have to think about. It's just going to be very different from if you're coming from an old school coil sprung, leaf spring sprung suspension, maybe perhaps a solid axle vehicle. You know, if you're coming from a Jeep, something like a Toyota 4Runner, those things, you know, this vehicle is going to be a little different. So keep those things in mind. So one of the things that I'm also not sure about yet on the Defender is the front bumper. So on the LR4, there are ARB makes a front bumper, which is one I put on, but there are some steel bull bar style front bumpers out there that are also winch compatible. And then there are some winches out there that are actually kind of less, they go more with the stock bumper. You don't have to actually put the whole bumper on, a whole new bumper. I opted for the ARB steel bumper because I like to be able to sit on it. It's flat, you can set stuff on it. The winch fits in there. It's got the protection around the headlights and everything. So you can do that. Like I say, I don't know yet if you're going to be able to for Discovery. I know that ARB does not yet make one for the for the Defender. One of the issues that might come up with the Defender is it looks to me like they have radiators down low. If the bumper's like here, if you've seen some of them that have the winch installed with the sort of semi-bull bar, there's the middle bull bar. On either side there, I think that there are radiators behind there. If that's the case, you know, I don't know what the status is going to be in terms of being able to take that off, putting a steel bumper on there or not. It will just, that's going to remain to be seen. That's beyond what I can find online, anything about the engineering of the thing. So, and I haven't seen people yet really do too much modifications with it to be able to check. So, you know, the front bumper is going to be an issue. You can get a winch with that that underside protection, basically, in the little bull bar in the middle from the factory, actually at time of delivery. I forget the guy's channel, UK something or other. I'll put a link to it. He just installed one. Doesn't look like the easiest install. I haven't actually watched this whole video yet, but doesn't look like the easiest install in the world, but it can be done. So you can get that on there. The other thing is that's actually positive about it. So one of the downsides to the LR4 was where they stuck the spare tire. So I got the off-road package that had the HD package that had the locking rear diff, because I knew I was going to go off-roading with it and I wanted that, which came with the full-size spare. But it still went underneath the vehicle in the rear. So as soon as I got the bigger tires, even on the 20s, it didn't fit under there anymore, which was fine because I didn't want it under there anyway. And I carry it actually in the way back. I have it standing up on the passenger side against the window, and I have some straps, and it holds it in there. It's actually pretty fine. However, I lose loading space, obviously, because of it. I like the LR4's split tailgate. I love having that little tailgate that flips down. It's about, I don't know, maybe that high, foot, maybe. It has that crazy, looks like that on the back. So on one side it's probably maybe about a foot, and the other it's maybe 18 inches. And it's nice because you can sit on it, you can like eat on it, you can use it as a table. I've pulled up chairs and eaten on it. But as a result of the flip up and flip down style tailgate, there's nowhere to put the spare on the back. Now, for the LR4, there are some aftermarket companies that make a swing arm tailgate. Again, you have to modify it. Some, you take the entire bumper off, you put a steel bumper on that has the swing arm. Some, this swing arm just goes into the OEM bumper that's on there. You just got to take the cover off in an area and put it on. But of course, that means you got to pull the swing arm out, then open up the top, open up the bottom. Just makes it a little bit more cumbersome. With the Defender, they put the spare where it should be for an off-road vehicle on the back. It means that the whole opening in the back is the whole rear door is an actual hinged door that swings out. So you lose the tailgate feature, but you get your spare there. So that's actually a really nice feature. And it was one of the downsides to, I would say, the LR4. One of the other things I do like about the new Defender compared to my LR4 is all of the basically rubber on the inside. I think the whole thing is rubber. The whole floor is basically from front to back on the interior are rubberized, which is nice. The LR4's got the carpet. When they did the LR4, they tried to make it a little bit more upscale. Sort of there's the way Tata's gone with JLR since they bought them, basically. And I mean, the leather on the inside is beautiful. It's really nice. It's durable. But it's got the carpets and stuff. And obviously, if you're using it outdoors, it's just one more thing to clean. It'd be nice if they were all rubberized. Putting that rubberized floor in the Defender, I think, is really cool. One of the other things that the Defender has that also my LR4 has a lot of, although the Defender looks like it has even more, is cubbies everywhere. One of the things when you're off-roading is, man, you got stuff everywhere, right? You got your walkie, you got your cell phone, maybe a satellite phone, you got perhaps a tablet with a GPS. You got to be able to access your screen. So all that stuff you need to stick it places. Maybe gloves if it's cold out and you're coming in, when you're getting in and out of the car. So all those cubbies are perfect. In fact, I like that little cubby off to the left of the steering wheel. It looks like it's a perfect place for a walkie. So those things are pretty cool. I don't know, that grab bar that goes across, that's integrated into the frame is pretty cool as a grab handle, but also I'm wondering if it'd be good to be able to install, just holding things there. So things to hold a lot of, like your cell phone and a tablet and stuff like that. So that's the sort of stuff that the interior seems like it's pretty well designed and thought out for that kind of thing. So, we'll see. I haven't really I got one in one at the, an auto show back in, actually right before COVID hit. So it was the beginning of this year, like January 2020. And I was on an auto show, so I only could spend so much time. I haven't gotten in one since. So we'll see kind of what the interior looks like. But that's definitely a nice feature, it seems, that they've done. So the next thing that you're going to have to learn about is going to be the all-wheel drive and four-wheel drive system, depending on what model you get. This is not old school off-roading. You know, this is the modern way to do it. There's pluses and minuses to it. What I can tell you is that it'll do just about everything an old school vehicle will do if you get it properly equipped. With the Land Rovers, though, the Defender, my LR4, they do it more electronically. So, you know, if you have an old school Jeep, sounds like the Bronco is going to be like this, or some of the Toyota vehicles. You know, you select when you want the locker to lock on many of them. Although a lot of the pickup trucks now are moving to electronic lockers for the rear diff. With this, it's going to do it all automatically. I do wish they had a button that allowed you to also select it manually when you want both the center. So your Land Rover Defender is going to have a center locker and a rear locker. I wish they had a button for each of those that would allow you to override the automatic and do it manually when you wanted, but you know, they don't, so is what it is. But there's a couple tricks I'll tell you about in a minute. Here's what I'll say. The basic full-time four-wheel drive system of Land Rover is really good. It's just a really good system. It's very fast to engage. It applies, the way it works is it applies the brakes to a wheel, so that to the wheel that's turning or slipping, so that then the diff will then send the power, the torque to the other wheel and allow that one to grab and to go. So that system, they were one of the first ones, I think it might have been the first to come out with it back in the Disco 1 or Disco 2, I don't know, whatever. But it's a really great system. They've perfected the thing to the T now. It also, I believe, all of the US, or actually all the Defender models, I believe, also have a locking center diff. So what that means is that it's going to send 50% of your torque to the front and to the rear equally when that's locked. You can go to, when you're in it, you can go to your four-wheel drive pages, and I when I'm off-road, I go between either the four-wheel drive page or my cameras, depending on what I'm doing when I need them. And the four-wheel drive, you'll see the little green, the little diff will be green when it's unlocked, and then it'll turn red when it locks, and you'll see it blink on and off and that sort of thing. So it's doing that as you need it. The difference is that with the Land Rover, you need to get, with any of these systems actually, not just Land Rovers, but any of these systems that are automatic, that have the terrain response and that sort of thing, where you can select, you know, sand, rock, whatever, you have to give the computer a time to figure out what's going on, which means you have to continue to keep your foot on the accelerator even as you start to notice some slippage. Now, you don't need to go overboard. You're not going to like be flooring it, but a very low, slow, steady pace is what you're looking for. As it starts to slip, don't let off, don't apply the brake, just continue to give it that same steady acceleration, and the computer then will stop the wheel that's spinning, send the torque to the wheel that's not, open or close your diffs to distribute it front to rear, or if you got a rear locking diff, distribute it side to side evenly to then get you going. So it's a little bit of a different driving experience off-road than if you're used to a traditional manual. You know, before you get into the thing, you lock your diff and you go. And you're already locked when you're in. This, once you're in, you may not be locked, and it's going to lock it as it feels what's going on. So you got to give it that chance to understand and feel what's going on. So so that's one of the things about the four-wheel drive. If you're really going to be doing off-roading with this, get the locking rear diff. It's so totally worth it. It's just, it makes the thing really pretty much, I mean, unstoppable with the right tires on it. I go everywhere everybody else goes when I'm off-road, and there's no problem. I would definitely get the locking rear diff. With that, it will also give you the rock crawl. I don't know if all 110s come with the low range, but again, if you're going to be doing the off-roading, you got to get the low range and the locking rear diff. The low range in that thing's going to be phenomenal. My LR4 has like a 43.3 to 1 crawl ratio. Okay, so that means when you're in your lowest gear, in low range, that's the proportion of the power. And I've got a video, I'll put the link in the description below. I can walk next to that thing when it's just crawling along. Nobody's in the car, nobody's pressing the gas. That low range just goes at this perfect slow little speed. You know, I can step down if I'm on a rock and I got to step down, put it into low range, and you can just walk it right off of whatever you need to. Very, very good crawl ratio on that thing. The Defender's even better. The Defender's like 56 to 1 or something like that. So it's going to be an even better crawler. So definitely you want to get that low range. You want to get the locking rear diff. One little trick you can do with the locking rear diff is if you select rock crawl mode, even if it's not necessarily rocks, it should lock your rear diff for you, and then you can go. So that's one of the little tricks that I found is if I want my rear diff locked, I'll go into rock crawl mode and then lock it. So it locks the center too, locks the center and the rear. So basically I'm locked before I go into whatever the features that I'm about to go into. So that's kind of a few things about the Defender. The other nice thing about the Defender is apparently now I guess you can sort of create your own terrain thing. You know, you can, because what the terrain response does is it changes throttle input, steering response, how much slippage it's going to allow in the wheels before it engages brakes, lockers, that sort of thing. And I think you can kind of create your own version, basically. And the one thing I don't know yet is if, in doing that, you can create one that locks the rear diff automatically, which I think would be cool because, unfortunately, with rock crawl, you got to be in low range. And there are some times where I'd like to just lock the rear diff, like just have it locked, but be in high range four-wheel drive. I can't really do it, so, you know, is what it is. It's going to lock on and off when it wants to if I'm in high. But, you know, if you can do that, if you can create one where it allows you to lock it, basically, and even when you're in 4 high, that could be kind of cool. So, so those are a few things about the Defender that, again, if you're getting it, you're planning on doing, you know, some off-roading with it, I think you need to be aware of going in because it's just going to be a different vehicle than an old school one. Better or worse, that's a debate we can have all day long. Depends really on how you're using it, what you're doing with it. You know, there's a lot of people who, well, you can't take it to Africa because some bushman with a hammer and a wrench can't fix it. Well, you know, I ain't going to Africa, so what the hell do I care? You know, every place I go is in the U.S. I'm at most in a couple hours out in the woods from a road. I can probably, you know, get out if I need to. It's just a different way. It's just a different way of doing it. So but properly set up with a locking rear diff, low range, proper tires on the thing, and pretty much the thing will go anywhere. Oh, one of the other thing I'll say is the cameras. The cameras are really cool. The thing has more cameras than I have on my LR4. But the one camera setting that I use all the time is the side. So they call it curb view in the LR4, but it shows the camera on the left side of the vehicle and on the right side of the vehicle. So I can see exactly how much room I have on either side of my vehicle in terms of the width of the road. And man, that thing has come in handy so many times when I'm, you know, on a really pretty narrow road, trail, whatever, and there's a drop-off on one side, especially if that one side's drop-off is not just straight, you know, if it's a little jagged, if it's maybe loose or soft. I can see exactly how close I am to that edge, while also seeing how close I am to the other side. Because oftentimes, a lot of times on the East Coast here in the Appalachians, those types of trails have the mountain or the rock is going up on the one side, so you can scrape if you get too close to that. Or you can go. Sometimes there's a rock on the inside part of the trail that if you go up too high is going to make you off balance, and you know you got to be careful with rolling it. So So having those cameras, man, is really cool. And the Defender now has even more of them. I mean, it's got not only that view, but like that one 360 where you can see the thing from all angles. I still don't know exactly how they do that, but that's really cool. I think it has the forward-facing camera too, which I wish I had on my LR4. And who knows, maybe at some point in time I will put one on aftermarket. But those things are going to be, you're going to find are really helpful, especially if you're out on your own, which I do a lot of, you know, and I know, oh, you're not supposed to go off-road by yourself. Yeah, well, you know, there's small things also you're not supposed to do in life, but we do them. I can't always get a group to get together and go. I don't do hardcore off-roading when I'm out there, but, you know, still, like I say, there's sometimes there's trails where they're just narrow and you don't have a spotter, and those cameras will really come in handy when you're out there. So that is really cool. The other thing that the Defender has that's really awesome is the rear view mirror camera. So, you know, I can't tell you how many times in my LR4 that thing is packed floor to ceiling in the way back with stuff, mountain bike equipment, camping gear, I don't know, whatever. And I mean, I can't see out that back window at all. And having that camera in the rearview mirror would be really cool. The way I get around it currently is, again, with the cameras on the LR4, you can pull them up and then you can select which camera you want so that it fills up the entire screen. So if I need to back up, I can select the rear view camera and keep it on that. Or if I just want to drive with that camera on, I can do that. I actually do that when I tow sometimes, keep an eye on the boat in the back. And that's pretty cool that you can do that. You know, it doesn't, because it'll turn on when you put it in reverse, but then as soon as you get out of reverse, it's going to go off. So the ability to lock that rear view camera on your screen and be able to watch that even when you're driving forward is a pretty cool thing. But the downside is it's a rear view camera. It's not like the one that's on the mirror, which seems to me to be a little better placed and give you a little wider field of vision. So that thing's going to be cool. So I don't know if that's like something that comes standard on the car, or if that's a feature you got to add. But if you have to add it, I would suggest getting that, because if you're going to use this thing, there's going to be plenty of times where your back is going to be filled up with stuff to the ceiling. You're not going to be able to see, and having that camera is going to be pretty cool. So those are my thoughts on people that are going to be buying the Defender, either maybe new to the off-roading completely, or coming from more of an old school four-wheel drive vehicle and moving into the Defender, which is obviously, like I say, a much more modern, much more electronic version of doing the four-wheeling and doing off-roading and four-wheel drive, and is going to take some getting used to. And those are the things you really got to watch and consider. Think about them before you buy them, and after you buy it. Hopefully those things will help you with modifying it. So hope you like this. Hope it helps some people out there.